In this year, actually, in this month, we will come out 2 models. One is SH5RT. The AC rated power is 5 kilowatt. Another one is SH10RT. Obviously, their AC rated power is 10 kilowatt. The second thing is they are 3-phase, not single phase. Lastly, it's their hybrid inverters. So that means this inverter can connect to PV arrays and the batteries both. And this hybrid inverters only can be compatible with high voltage batteries rather than low voltage batteries, such as 48 volts batteries. Okay, so the fourth section is about our basic features. Here is the circuit diagram. You can see this dotted line box. The interior is the inverter inside. It has 4 main circuits. Here is maximum power point trackers between the PV arrays and the main DC bus bar. The second one is bidirection DC to DC converter between the main DC bus bar and the batteries. The function on that is can control the battery charge and the discharge power. The third one is bidirection AC to DC inverter circuit. The function is can convert the energy from the DC bus bar, the DC side, to the AC side. Also can absorb the energy from the AC side into the DC side. The last circuit is the transfer switch. You can see it has 2 AC terminals. Here we are connect to the emergency loads and the third-party solar inverters. And here we are connect to the grid. So what's the function on that? The function, this transfer switch can disconnect. Give me a second. Can disconnect the grid when the grid has the power outage, and then the system can still generate the power to supply the power to supply the emergency loads. Okay, so this is the backup capability, and the seamless, and we have the seamless transfer. That means
everything okay there, Scott? I've lost audio.
I lost it.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost connection. It does say he's connecting.
Okay, while he's getting himself back in, just check on our attendees. Everybody's in. He's going to be in. Okay. I've given everybody permission to talk should they wish to, but I would ask that if you have any questions, we might have a short Q&A at the end of Scott's session and everybody else's sessions. You can submit questions via the chat function should you wish.
Sorry.
Oh, you're back, mate.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah. The problem. Let
okay.
me go ahead.
Questions can be submitted through the chat function and can be addressed in real time if we get a chance. But you can also, we'll allow a small amount of time at the end of the session for just straight up questions. Okay, back to you, Scott. Thanks, mate.
Okay, I go back. So we have the seamless transfer. I will introduce this function later. So firstly, I just want to emphasize what is seamless transfer. When the grid has the power outage, firstly, the transfer switch will disconnect the grid. Secondly, the system will still generate the AC voltage to supply the emergency loads. The whole position will only take 20 milliseconds. So that means most home loads will not lose the power supply. Okay. So the first scenario you can see here is when the solar power is very sufficient. And you can see here, this is the PV arrays. And the energy will go through the maximum power point trackers to the main DC bus bar. and then we'll go through the AC to DC inverter to the AC side to supply the emergency loads and the other loads. Secondly, the rest of the solar energy can charge into the batteries here, okay? The second scenario is when the solar power is not sufficient and the battery can discharge to offset the load consumption. The third one is such as at night, the solar power is not available, but the system can still work. We can discharge the battery to supply the house loads, okay? Another scenario is very similar. This one is very common in retrofitting systems. When the new Sungrow new hybrid inverters don't install the new PV arrays, but the system can still work, and the system can still use the existing solar system power to charge the batteries. Okay, so here I want to introduce each circuit capacity. So the first one is MPPT, the maximum power trackers. Regarding SH5RT, it has 2 MPPT and 2 PV inputs, and SH10RT has 2 MPPTs, but it has 3 PV inputs. So for the first MPPT, it only has 1 PV input, but the second MPPT, it has 2 PV inputs. Okay. The second one is bidirectional DC to DC converter. SH5RT, the charge power is 7.5 kilowatt, discharge power is 6 kilowatt, and the SH10RT is 10.6 kilowatt for charge and discharge power. The third one is bidirectional AC to DC inverter. Obviously, SH5RT is 5 kilowatt, SH10RT is 10 kilowatt. Lastly, it's transfer switch. SH5RT is the backup circuit capacity. SH5RT is 12.5 kilowatt. SH10RT is 20.6 kilowatt. So what's the meaning on what this capacity? Such as SH10RT is 20.6 kilowatt. So you can install up to 10 kilowatt emergency loads plus up to 10 kilowatt third-party solar inverters. Okay. So the next one is we have 3-phase with a neutral phase. So under the backup mode or off-grid applications, we can supply the 3-phase loads. Also, we can supply single-phase loads. Here is our compatible batteries. At the moment, we can be compatible with LG 10 kilowatt hour high voltage batteries, but please pay attention. It's type R because LG has 2 types. One is type R, another one is type C. We only can be compatible with their type R. Type R means the communication method is RS485. Type C is CAN communication, CAN communication. Another one is BYD batteries. We can be compatible with their latest high voltage batteries, HVS and HVM, and we can support very wide range from 5.1 kilowatt hour to 22.1 kilowatt hour. So I believe based on these 2 batteries, we can support nearly all applications. Okay. The next section is cutting edge performance. The first one is, as I mentioned before, is seamless transfer. So here is the grid voltage sine curve, and from here the grid has the power outage, and the grid voltage cannot continually supply the house loads. But here is Sungrow hybrid inverters. We can still generate this sine voltage curve to supply the house loads, emergency loads. And from here to here is the transition period. And we can do less than 20 milliseconds. So Here, I have a short video to show you this seamless transfer capability. Okay, it's done. I go back. So regarding this system diagram, you can see the backup circuit has the television. It's a very old television, and the hybrid inverters. This hybrid inverter connected the PV arrays and the batteries. And here is the main circuit, AC circuit. And the engineer, this guy, switched off this main AC circuit. This can simulate the grid is faulty, but you can see the television can still work without any power blackout. I play it again. Okay, from here. Oh, sorry. Yes. So it's very amazing. And then the second test is this guy switched on this AC circuit again that can simulate the grid recovered from the faulty condition, and the television were working smoothly as well. Okay, so I play it again. Oh, yeah, from here. Yes. So this one is Sungrow seamless transfer function. And this function at the moment is available for all Sungrow new hybrid inverters, including Sungrow single-phase hybrid inverter SH5K-30, also in this three-phase hybrid inverters. And this feature, I believe, should be the biggest selling point, okay? The second one is we support 100% unbalanced loads in off-grid mode. So the first one, this diagram can show you the loads, the three-phase loads are balanced. You can see on each phase, the load consumption is similar, such as on phase A, 3 kilowatt, phase B, 2.8 kilowatt, and phase C, 3.1 kilowatt. It's very similar. Another scenario is loads are not balanced, such as on phase A is very light, 0.3 kilowatt, and phase C, 1.2 kilowatt, but on phase B is 3.3 kilowatt. So under this situation, I know the diesel generator cannot handle this scenario, but for Sungrow hybrid inverter, three-phase hybrid inverters, we can still do that. Okay, and here I have another short video to demonstrate this unbalanced load power supplying. Okay, I go back again. So in terms of this diagram, it's off-grid applications firstly, because this system doesn't have the grid power supply, but the system can still supply the off-grid loads. And under this test, on phase A and the neutral phase has a television, the single phase load, and a single phase air conditioner between the phase B and the neutral phase. And the television, the power is 0.7 kilowatts, and the air conditioner is 1.5 kilowatts. And on phase C to the neutral phase, it's empty, no any loads, but the inverter can still supply this unbalanced scenario. Okay, so this is the evidence to prove Sungrow can supply 100% unbalanced load under the backup mode or off-grid applications. Okay, so next one is we have virtual power plant VPP capability in Australia, and we already have some partners in Australia, such as GreenSync, Switchding, and Solarnetics. That means Sungrow can enter all governments or energy retailers VPP schemes in Australia. Next one is we have 12.5 amps MPPT current, so that we can be compatible with all new panels, in particular 317 panels. Because, you know, today, more and more panel manufacturers already come out 317 panels. 370 panels is very attractive because, such as on the 5 kilowatt standard system, you will install around 6.6 kilowatt panels. But under 317 panel, based on that, you just need to install 18 panels. This configuration is very suitable for some customers who only have very small rooftop. Also, 18 panels can minimize your installation cost and the installation time. That should be the best option at the moment. But 317 panels, they have a small issue because their current is higher than other panels, such as 320, 330 panels, such as Longi 317 panel. The current is 10.76 amps. China is 10.82 amps. Canadian solar is over 11 amps. But for Sungrow, because we have 12.5 amps tracking current, so we can very easily to handle these panels. But I know some other manufacturers, they only have 11 amps MPPT current. If so, I believe they cannot 100% to be compatible with 370 panels. Okay. So the next one is off-grid modes. So here, this diagram is a very typical off-grid system. Firstly, you shall install a grid-forming inverter. Also, you should install the charge controller, and the charge controller has two terminals. The one will connect to the PV arrays. Another one will connect to the batteries. The second one is optional. It's third-party solar inverter. And also, you shall install a controller, microgrid controller, to control the grid-forming inverter, charge controller, and the third-party solar inverter. Also, you shall install this cabling, this communication cabling. But for Sungrow, we have frequency shifting, this capability, this function. So no need for external controllers and no need for communication cabling. And SH5K, our three-phase hybrid inverters are all-in-one hybrid. And you can install the PV arrays and the batteries on this hybrid inverter directly. No need for this charger controller. So this design, Sungrow hybrid inverters will be installed for off-grid systems, you can save about $1,000, and you can save about 1 hour installation time. It's very amazing, I think. And what is frequency shifting? You will ask me, because when this battery is fully charged, you should tell the third-party solar inverter to reduce their output power. So without this controller and this communication cables, how we control the third-party solar inverter? You may ask. Okay, let me explain. So this is frequency shifting. Typically, under the standard situation, the battery is not fully charged. The hybrid inverter will generate the 50 Hertz frequency, but when the battery is fully charged, the hybrid inverter can increase the off-grid frequency, such as we can increase to 51.125 Hertz, and then the third-party solar inverter will reduce their output power due to over frequency shifting function. Okay, so that means we can use this frequency, this signal, to control the third-party solar inverters without physical controllers, without any communication cables. Okay. The next section is very simple and very easy. Firstly, we have this inbuilt DC isolators, and this DC isolator can comply with all relevant standards in Australia, such as AS5033 is installation standard. Second one is this DC isolator has the local certificate. It's AS60947 Part 3. Thirdly, is this DC isolator already has been listed on Electrical Regulation Australia Council, ERAC Council, and the category is level 3, so no need for the external DC isolators anymore. This design can save you $100 and save you half-hour installation time. In addition, previously, installers will install the DC isolators, and if so, installers will take the warranty responsibility on these DC isolators. But for this inbuilt design, okay, this inbuilt design, Sungrow will take the responsibility, and all Sungrow new products, we can provide you 10 years, full of 10 years warranty. Okay. In other words, this DC isolator, inbuilt DC isolators, have 10 years warranty. Okay. So next one is on these new products, we don't have the separate EPS box, the emergency power supply box, because we already integrated this box into the inverter. I will show you. I think, yeah, I will find a picture to show you this one. And this design can save you $300 and 1 hour installation time. And previously, such as on our single-phase hybrid SH5K-20, we have a separate EPS box, and we only provide you 2 years warranty. But this inbuilt design is 10 years warranty as well. Next one is we have one-click commissioning, because we have all-in-one app, Solar Cloud app. What is all-in-one meaning? That means this app is suitable for all customers, including end users, installers, and installation companies. And the installers can configure all parameters on this app. Also, we support this template, the DNSP setting template at the moment. And currently, we already support NGX, Ergon, Gemini, Underworld, or Squid, and such as Victoria, another one, a power core, and some other Victoria DNSP templates. So installers only need to select the right setting template on SOL Cloud app, and the commissioning is done, is finished. It's very simple, okay? And I think under this new function, installers only need to take 1 or 2 minutes can finish the one side commissioning. It's very simple, okay? The next one is we have plug and play terminals. Okay, so this picture is very clear. I want to show you this. We have inbuilt ETS box. So here you can see it has 2 AC terminals. This one is the backup circuit terminal will connect to the emergency circuits. I mean the sub switch boards and the emergency loads and the third-party solar inverter can install on this circuit. The second one is the main AC circuit. This one will connect to the grid. Okay, and here is the MC4 PV connector. And here is the battery connector. It's a sunk legs. Okay. Next section is where we are very tiny but very powerful. The first one is we have 24 hours monitoring. This one is our main dashboard on Sungrow SOL Cloud web page. And we suppose 5 minutes data interval. That means every 5 minutes, the system will upload the data once. And we have cloud-based storage. So the customer and the users can watch all historical data on Sungrow website, also on the app. The second one is we support remote siting and the remote firmware upgrading. So the installers, we cannot open this authority to end users. We only open this one for installers. Okay, installers can configure the parameters remotely as long as the inverter can access the internet. Also, we support the firmware upgrading. And this one is a one-click upgrade. So you can see this screenshot. You just need to select which inverter you are going to upgrade and press this button, and will pop up a window. And the system will check the inverter current firmware version. If this is not the latest version, and you can directly upgrade the firmware. Okay. Also, you can upload the local firmware file on this web page to upgrade the inverter firmware. Next one is we have a load control timer. So because we have this dual relay on the inverter, and the installers can design this external AC contactor to control the loads. And we support 3 modes to control this dual relay. The first one is timing mode. That means installers can set up a period. In this period, the dual relay will switch on, and out of this period, the dual relay will switch off. Okay. The second one is switch mode. That is manual mode. That means installers can switch on or switch off this dual relay manually. The third one is intelligent mode. That means when the system, the hybrid system, when the system has the feeding power, solar feeding power into the grid, if so, the dual relay will switch on, and alternatively, when the system will import the power from the grid, and this dual relay will switch off. Next one is we have intelligent inbuilt energy management system. So typically in residential system, it has 3 power sources. The first one is solar, second one battery, third one is grid, and our inbuilt EMS can decide which power source has the highest priority to supply the host loads, and which one has the second priority, and which one has the lowest priority. So such as this, when the solar power is very sufficient, and the solar power will supply the host loads, also will charge the battery as long as the battery is not fully charged. Also, will fit into the grid when as long as the DSP can accept the feeding power, solar feeding power. The second scenario is when the solar power is not sufficient, so our EMS will discharge the battery to supply the host load consumption. Okay. The third one is at night, solar power is not available, and the EMS will discharge the battery to supply the loads, the host loads. Lastly, is when the solar power is not available and the battery is fully discharged, and we don't have any option. We just can use the grid power to supply the load consumption. Next one is we have battery customized control. So installers can, based on the electricity tariff, to decide when battery should discharge and when battery can use the grid power to charge battery to minimize the electricity tariff. Last section is our typical applications. The first one is standard application. You can see the system has one hybrid inverter, and it has the PV arrays and the battery. The second one is AC charger. The house only installs the one hybrid inverter and the battery, but without the PV arrays. But the system can still work. The third one is retrofitting system or existing system. That means the house already installed existing solar system. Okay, but the Sungrow hybrid inverter can be compatible with these retrofitting systems, and the house rooftop can install a new PV arrays to connect to the hybrid inverter. Also, without the new PV arrays, it doesn't matter, the system can still work. The last application is off-grid applications. So without the power grid, the system can still work. The one hybrid inverter, the battery will connect to the hybrid inverter. And this one is the third-party solar inverters, also Sungrow inverters, solar inverters is the same. And here is the diesel generator, is the backup power source. Okay, and the one hybrid inverter can supply up to 12 kilowatts surge power. Okay. All right, I finished my presentation. Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Scott.
Yes.
Very thorough, mate. You touched on a lot of subject matter there. Now, most of you might have noticed I sent through a message to the attendees that I've muted most mics just to improve the bandwidth. So we would ask that questions be raised in the question and answer section. There's a little tab at the bottom of your screen there, and we'll address those. Anything that can wait till the end, there will be a chance to speak directly, and that'll be on. We'll be using the hand raised feature. So if you raise your hand, I'll turn on your mic, and you can ask your question directly to the panel, any of the panelists. Then, just to keep the meeting moving along, I think we'll just keep it to written questions in the Q&A box, and we'll do a more forum-based Q&A session towards the end. So thanks once again, Scott. That was excellent. The frequency shifting blew my mind. That was awesome. I think that's a real,
Definitely. Yes.
it's a real plus. It's a real plus.
Mm.
Okay, Wayhan, are you ready to roll?
Yeah, of course.
Of
wait a
course he
moment.
is. Everybody, this is Wayhan. He's going to take over from Scott and talk a little about the C&I space and the commercial offerings that Sungrow are bringing to the table. So I'll turn off my mic and my ugly camera and leave it to you, Wayhan. Thank you, Scott. Over to you, Wayhan.
Yeah, you have to enable my screen sharing.
Yeah, you should be able to, mate. Try it now.
Okay, thank you. No, not.
No? That's okay. Give me a moment. Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Yep. Wait a moment.
And there he is. Over to you, mate.
Yep. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
mate.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, we
And
can.
thank you guys for your participation. And thanks, Scott. And hope you guys enjoy the presentation from him. And now I'm going to have you to introduce our new generation inverter for commercial and industry level, like in 2020. And firstly, I'm going to have your general idea about the STC requirements. And there are two major requirements for applying the debate. The first one, you could look up the CEC website, and it's mentioned that everything, like for the DC part of the system, everything within 100 kilowatt, you will meet one of the requirements. And the other one that you could find out on the grid connection solar PV system design guideline, also published by CEC, and that mentioned that the AC part of the power, which means that inverter nominate AC power, have to be larger than the array peak power. For example, if you install 100 kilowatt DC from PV panel, then your minimum inverter nominal power will be 75 kilowatt. And that's why we turn out for this year, we announced 3 CNI inverters. The first one is SG30CX Premium. And you might aware of that the 29.9 kilowatt rated power, because that everything below 30 kilowatt output, you don't need to install extra protection relay. And for the SG30CX we integrate with 3 MPPT and maximum 6 PV string input. Let me open my pointer. Yep. And in the middle level, SG50CX Premium might meet your requirement because there are 5 MPPT and maximum 10 PV string input. And however, on the largest side, PV CNI PV inverter is our SG110CX. When the system larger than 66 kilowatt, we might suggest you to use our 110CX Premium range, because they got 9 MPPT and 18 string input. Here I want to emphasize and address that this particular 110CX Premium, we got the Red Dot Design Award, which is the Germany industry design award. We regularly send the product and the design to apply the competition, and we got the several awards so far. This is one of them. I think 3-phase hybrid inverter is one of them as well. And for this product, you might question why do we need to install 110 kilowatt inverter for just only 99 kilowatt system for STC? Here I'm going to tell you why. Because in some occasion, the grid power, the grid voltage might over voltage, too high. For example, in this from iSolar platform, we could monitor the grid voltage. This occasion, one of the grid voltage phase is already 255 volts, and best from the argon energy or the energex. They are required inverter to conduct the V-volt and V-volt mode, which means the inverter have to do the reactive control to compensate the high voltage of the grid. For our inverter, for example, in the grid voltage is 255.4 volt. The reactive power is 56 kilowatt, and the real active power is still 80 kilowatt. And turn out as a result, the AC/DC ratio is remained at around 80.8%. However, in the market, some of the inverter, they are just only 80 kilowatt, and their reactive power compensate have to be around 41 kilowatt, and the real active power is only reduced to only 58.1 kilowatt. And you can see that the AC/DC ratio at the reactive power compensation will drop to 58.74, which means their inverter have to sacrifice more active power, the real output power, for the reactive power compensation. But our inverter will get more energy output and more energy yield. And the following, I will have some general idea, and I'll dress up the advantage of our inverter. As Scott mentioned, not only the residential inverter, but also all of our inverter product, especially the CNI one, that we all inbuilt the certified PC isolator. From the right side of my slide, you can see this one is the traditional DC commander box with a lot of DC isolator, because according to the regulation, you have to install extra isolator next to the inverter. And as a result, the poor system reliability, because for each extra DC isolator, which means one more failure point of the system. And as well as for the operation and maintenance, so many DC isolator might be difficult to maintain and for the operation. And our DC isolator are all compliant with all of the relevant Australia standards, such as 5033 and 60947, and as well as listed under the EREC database for level 3. And the second advantage is our high tracking current input capability, that is 30 amps, which means our single MPPT tracking current input is 26 amps, really dramatically innovation result. And the commercial inverter, our commercial inverter are capable of to install with the bifacial panel or half-cut 400 watt panel. And this is a case study that you can see the comparison table. We compare the inverter in the market. Most of them are 11 amps input only. And however, our string input is 30 amps. And under STC condition, for example, I will use this Longi 445 watt PV panel. The STC condition, they will get 12.96 amps input, and this for other brand of inverter are already overload. But however, our string input still got the room for extra current input, which means we could install the more PV panel. And the third one might be the isolar cloud and the IV curve scanning, and with permanent free. I want to emphasize it's totally free for as long as you install our inverter, and without any extra accessory required. And you could simply using our isolar cloud to conduct the fast diagnosis for the PV stream. But what is the best concept behind the IV curve scanning? In our isolar cloud, we built in several algorithm. Like for example, this one is a good condition IV curve, and then we have already database to build in if there's a dirt or the PV panel is already with the dust or the dirt, it will be like this. And for the partial shading condition, the IV curve will like the stairs. So when the customer conduct the IV curve scanning by our inverter and the logger, and you will get the actual IV curve data and the curve, and the system will compare with our inbuilt database. So we could fast diagnose the condition, the PV stream condition, whether it's good or like dirt or not clean or partial shading. And the first one is our DC connector with the DC part is really is up to 30 amps, which means for the SG110CX range, you could connect up to 18 PV string under standard installation condition. And we also support 2-in-1 standard MC4 branch plug and socket, which means you could save, if you use all of them 2-in-1 input, you could save 50% of the cable and as well as the installation time. Because like, for example, the SG110CX range, there were only 9 groups of the PV cables, and for the 30CX range, there are only 3 groups of the PV cables. And the fifth one is that our CX range that is the commercial level, so it's really durable because we use the aluminum array cover, and the minimum IP protection is 66 and C5 anti-corrosion. And I want to address that this cooling fan, external cooling fan is IP68 rating, and mechanically we design it modularized. So as to for the installer or for the operation maintenance later on, you could quickly replace the cooling fan. Okay. And here is the flexibility and easy installation, because most of the inverter are only support vertical installation. However, for some of the CNI project, especially in the rooftop, the area for the inverter are limited. So we also support up to the horizontal 170-degree installation, which means from wall vertical installation or the ground-mounted horizontal installation. And if you choose to, or the project need to install the inverter horizontally, you might need to purchase this extra accessory, because even if the inverter installed horizontally, you still need the room for the cooling circulation. And this one is the other selling point and like a really good advantage of our inverter, because like you can see this traditional installation. A CNI level of project, the DC voltage might over 600 volts, so extra protection cage is required. And you can see this really traditional DC isolator have to install next to the inverter. So it's cost time, increase the failure point, and the cage. Not talk about the cage. That is really a nightmare for installer. However, for inverter, you don't need the protection cage anymore, because we will support the DC protection cover, and it's totally free, and the standard accessory will include in the inverter. And so this one is the real project in Sydney. We just helped to commissioning a few months ago, and you can see how clean and tidy of this whole system. And next one is Explore Limited and the dynamic reactive power control. When customer purchase our CNI range inverter, there will be IM4 Wi-Fi dongle. It's a standard accessory for communication or the power control. And the IM4 dongle can support up to 9 inverter for this sort of application. You only need to install in one master inverter and then daisy chain the rest of them. And the dongle will coordinate with our smart meter. so as to do the export limit and the dynamic reactive power control. And what if the project size is like in 1 megawatt or up to 30 megawatt, like more than 10 inverters are installed? Like we will suggest you to use our Logo 1000, which is the optional accessory. And the Logo 1000 will support up to 29 inverters, which means the maximum for the single Logo 1000 can support 3 megawatt CNI project. And as simple as that, you only need to connect one master inverter with Logo 1000 and then daisy chain the rest of them. And simple and easy to do the export limit and the dynamic reactive power control. But why do you need to do the dynamic reactive power control? For example, you can see from the screen here, without the reactive power control, the power factor sometimes might be less than 1, like around this, in this case is 0.7, and which means that you might sacrifice more active power to compensate the reactive, to do the reactive power compensation. With the dynamic reactive power control, the power factor will, we could remain the power factor up to almost 1, and which means that we will lose less, we will have less power loss and to gain the more energy output. And the other one is our CX range inverter had really wide range of the voltage window from 200 volt to up to 1000 volt. For example, if your customer use the 450 watt Trina the panel, when 20 panel connect to up to 9 kilowatt, and in STC condition, it's only 820 volt. And even in 0 degree, it's just slightly over 1000 volt, and the system could easily back to the normal operation. Okay, and the last advantage is all of inverter are support global MPPT scanning. What is global MPPT? You might not really familiar with this term. Like for normal MPPT, like this the single peak curve, that is normal. Normal inverter will tracing up the peak power of the peak point. However, the real MPPT curve is really like the mountains and hill. And if there is any shading condition happen, the original peak point might not suitable for the inverter. So our inverter will automatically trace up to the other second high peak point, which means the inverter will overcome the shading condition and to get more energy output without any less energy loss. And the other features, such as that Scott mentioned, we only use tier 1 component supplier, such as the Texas Instrument is one of the largest microchip manufacturing and design house as well. And for the inverter module, we choose the German company is the Infineon, and as well as some the other component. So that's why we could guarantee 25 years lifespan design. And according to our after-sales global team statistics report, is that internal report, our failure rate of the CX range inverter is less than 0.3%. It's like quite impressive. And about the certification, our inverter are all compliant with the relevant standards such as IEC 62191 and 1092. And of course the 4777 we all comply with this standard. And for the CNI level, IEC 62110 IEC 62116 is the new standard for the interconnected PV inverters, and are all certified and tested by third parties such as TUV and SAA. And regarding the power conversion efficiency, the inverter is up to 98.7% without any derating because we optimize the internal circulation, and as well as we put the high performance radiator at the back of the inverter. So the high efficiency is really important and guaranteed by Sungrow. The CX range inverter are also integrated into the iSolar Cloud, so just the one-click commissioning also apply in CX range. As long as the installer or the owner register in the iSolar Cloud, you could conduct the simple one-click commissioning. For the CNI level, the 99 kilowatt project, up to 20 minutes or 30 minutes will finish commissioning. And the iSolar Cloud are also built in the network service provider. Like we got the most of the service provider template. So just need to slightly change the parameter setting, and it's really easy to do the commissioning. Same as the residential product, the CNI range PV system are all could be monitored in our iSolar Cloud, and it's totally free. I want to mention that totally free even for CNI project. And as well as to conduct the remote setting and firmware upgrade. This function might be more suitable for the operation and maintenance team. That some of our EPC, they got the business in operation and maintenance, and this function is really useful for them because they don't need to go on site at all to do the system checking. They could just sit in front of their computer to do the parameter setting and checking. And if there is firmware upgrade required, they only need to do online with the iSolar Cloud. And local warehouse is one of our Sungrow advantage because we got the local service team, like in-house service team, and as well as 2 large warehouse for enough spare part and product stock. And last one, I want to talk about a little bit after sales service because we guarantee the 100% support for every single product and every single project. And especially for the CNI project, the service might be one of the most important things to do. Like this case study is on Sunday, well, I think 2-3 months ago on Friday morning, we got inquiry that customer feedback us their system is not work properly. As you can see from the chart, it's not caused by the shading or the bad weather. The weather is pretty good at that day actually. So there must be something wrong. But however, due to the pandemic issue, we are not able to send our people to on-site to do the system checking or diagnosis. So, but the customer still is, because the CNI project, you might know that every single second downtime means they lose money. So they want to back the system online before Monday morning. So, but it's already Friday afternoon. So what should we do? We decide to do a remote diagnosis and to do a troubleshooting from HQ and collaborate with the local team. How do we do that? We build up exactly the same system in China based on the single line diagram provided by our customer. So literally and actually, we have their system in our HQ, and we run the troubleshooting and diagnosis back to China. And on Saturday morning, the system is only 100% shut down, as you can see from iSolar Cloud monitoring. So, however, the Sunday morning, our system, the system is back to 100% output because we finished the troubleshooting like from HQ and from local team cooperation. And from the statistic, I think the downtime is less than 1 day. And even before the customer requirements, so they are pretty satisfied because we meet their requirement and even better. We always could do better as long as you know what you want us to do, and we will feedback in time. And I finished my presentation.
Thank you so much for that. That was excellent. Excellent. That troubleshooting in China reminds me of Apollo 13, where they're running the simulators and everything. That's an amazing result. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna move along. As I said before, Any questions you'd like to raise, you can put them in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand at the very end. And without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Graham.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen.
Very good. Now, Graham
Okay,
is going to cover off on commissioning, analytics, and all that smart stuff at the back end.
Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thanks,
My
mate.
presentation. All right, now can you see it in full screen mode? I'm just about to go on to full screen, yeah?
Yes, yep.
All right, cool. All right, let me just get my laser pointer on. Where are we? There we go. All right, so what I'm going to cover today is more of an installer focus, and I'm going to cover commissioning the CNI range via the IM4 dongle and or Logger 1000. Now, it is an installer module on its own. I would normally take about 45 minutes, so I'll try and speed up a little bit to try and keep it down to half an hour. And as we say, if you've got any questions, we can go through them at the end. Okay, now, as we had explained, every CX range inverter comes with an IM4 dongle. It's supplied with all the range, and it can communicate with up to 10 devices. That would be 9 inverters and plus 1 meter. If you don't have any meters on it, it's 10 inverters. If you're going to put a system in with more than the 10, then you have to look at a Logger 1000. That can communicate with up to 30 devices. That's the Logger 1000 here, and that is an optional extra. This dongle comes free, but you have to purchase that. I couldn't tell you the price off the top of my head. One of the advantages is when you set them up on the iSolar cloud, you only connect one device to the iSolar cloud, and because all the others are communicating with it, they will all be up on your plant. So there's only one setup, and it only takes a couple of minutes. We also use them for export control. So what I'm going to cover today is connection wiring. Excuse me, just a sip of water. And that's like the RS485. I'm not going to be talking about the AC or the DC at the moment. And the IM4 and the Logger wire up slightly different, so I'll cover them both separately. I'll cover the commissioning. I'll cover the CT ratio and export control settings, and the remote maintenance, which is getting it on iSolar cloud. So let's get started. Connection wiring. Now, RS485, if you haven't used it before, it's basically a 2-wire system. It's data positive and data negative. That's it. It may have a shield around it, or it may not, but our system just uses the positive and negative. On the inverters, there are 2 channels. There's an A1B1 and an A2B2 channel. Now, I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment, but the inverters always connect on the A1B1 channel. A1 is positive, B1 is negative, and basically the daisy chain. So you come out of the A1B1 and you go to the next inverter and you come into A1B1, you come out of A1B1, go to the next inverter, etc., etc. In all of our inverters, there is a screw terminal block, or there's an RJ45. You can use RJ45 if you like, but I prefer to use the screw terminal, because if you're making these RJ45 plugs up on site, there's always a chance that there's a bad connection, and it'll cause you no end of trouble. So I generally prefer just use the screw terminals. We do recommend that you use shielded twisted pair with a minimum section area of 0.75. Obviously, there's less volt drop across that, you're less likely to lose signal, so we do prefer that you use that. If you are using the RJ45s, pin 6 is the RS45A, and pin 3 is RS485B if you're using that. Now, the golden rule, and if you keep this in your head, you won't go wrong. This is the basic simple rules to the whole thing, and it'll work. RS485A is data positive. RS485B is data negative. Sungrow inverters always communicate on the A1B1 channel. energy meters always communicate on the A2, B2 channel. Now, if you keep those in your head, you won't get it wrong. Connecting multiple inverters is literally connecting in parallel. And once again, we see the parallel connection here. Now, if you have more than 15 inverters on the same site, you will have, this is for the Logger 1000 only, because obviously 15, you can't connect 15 to the dongle. But if you have more than 15, what we suggest is there's a couple of termination resistor switches, and you switch the one on at the inverter at each end of the chain. Don't worry about the logger, just the inverters, the first and last inverters. You put this little switch to the on position. Now that 120 ohm resistor, it stabilizes the signal across the positive and negative. Don't worry too much about it. If you don't switch it on, it'll probably still work okay, but it'll probably just work better. Once again, the little dip switch inside first and last inverter. Now, when you're connecting the IM4, if you're using the IM4 dongle, one inverter will be the master inverter, and it's always the first or the last inverter in the chain. Don't put the dongle into the middle. Only use one dongle, just the one. That's all you need. And you can plug it into either inverter number 1 or inverter number 9 on the chain. Now, the energy meter will also connect to the same inverter that you've plugged the dongle in. Make sure that you connect them both to the same inverter. And from there, the Wi-Fi signal goes to the customer's modem and up to the iSolar cloud. So yeah, just remember the meter and the dongle plugs into either inverter number 1 or number 9 if you're using the dongle. And there we see I've done the daisy chain there, which is the RS485 A1B1, which links all the inverters, and the A2B2 links the energy meter. Now inside, just to give you an idea of what it looks like inside the inverter, there is a little circuit board. They're slightly different on each inverter. On the 110 kilowatt inverter, you'll see a kind of large circuit board like this. It kind of sits up the way, like at 90 degrees to here, and you can see the A1, B1 connections there for the inverters, and the A2, B2 connections there for the meter. And it says tracker on it, just ignore that. I don't know why it says that. On the 30CX and the 50CX, it's a slightly different configuration, but they're two smaller circuit boards. And once again, they're both marked A1B1 for paralleling the inverters and A2B2 for the energy meter. So it's dead easy to get the access to these, and you'll be able to see it. Now, if you're wiring up a logger as opposed to using the dongle, there's just a few connections on this. It's very easy. There's a Wi-Fi antenna. There's an antenna comes in the box if you are going to use the Wi-Fi to communicate, or you can use a direct Ethernet connection to the customer's modem or their Cisco switch, whatever it is you're connecting to. So you've got the option of Ethernet or Wi-Fi. It's up to you which you use. A 24 volt DC power supply comes in the box, and that plugs in to this connection here. You can ignore these other ones, and here are your RS485 connections here. A1B1, where you connect your inverters, A2B2 for the meter, and there's a spare which you can use if you're connecting like a weather station or something like that. But in most cases, they'll just use the A1B1, A2B2. We also refer to these as COM1 and COM2 when we're doing the commissioning. Oh, and it just mounts on a DIN rail, so you can put it in an enclosure if you want. Daisy chain, once again, a bit of an elaboration on it here. You basically daisy chain each inverter into the RS485 and the energy meter to the RS485 there. In this configuration, you could have up to 29 inverters connected to it. And there's a bit of a zoom of this. This is the Logger 1000, the RS485 connections. And this is the one we have at the training center. And as you can see here, I've got RS485 A1B1 connected from the inverter and the A2B2 connected to the energy meter. On our energy meters, let me see, yep. You get a booklet with the energy meter, and pin 22 is the RS485A or the positive, and terminal 22 is RS485B or the negative. And you just connect those from here to here. Now, these are just push-in connections, so you don't need a screw terminal on that. And this block will actually unplug, so it makes it easier to actually do it. Just bear in mind you've got to terminate the cables with one of these bootlace things, just to make it a solid connection, and you just push them in. Now, once you've done that, that's all the RS485 wiring. It's actually very easy. Once you've linked these up, that's it done. You want to commission the system. So the Sungrow 3-phase inverters, now you need to initialize them before you'll actually start them up. They're imported, they don't have any grid connection settings loaded into them when they come into the country, so you need to actually initialize them. They will go into standby once you switch them on, and you can operate them from DC and or AC. So the following initialization procedure is how you initialize each of the inverters, and it's very easy. It's done via the iSolarCloud app on your smartphone or tablet. Just make sure you've downloaded the app, and of course make sure you've registered an installer account. The first thing you do is you're going to use the local access. Now you need to be near to the inverter to do this. So the first thing you do is open up the app, and instead of logging in, you see down here there's a little icon for local access. You're going to use this, and you're going to connect via the Bluetooth to the inverter. So you tap that little button here, and you'll get this screen here, and you select Bluetooth, and then what it will do, it will scan for the inverters nearby through the Bluetooth. Now this is only showing one, but if you have like 4 inverters, you'll see 4 of them listed. You can only do one at a time, so you just need to tap one at a time. So you just tap that serial number there, and you will get this initialization screen. Now this is universal for the entire range now that we do. So if you're doing one of the hybrid inverters, the 3-phase ones, you'll go through the same sequence. So you'll get this initialization thing, and you see here it says inverter uninitialized, please configure. So you tap this country region button here, and you go to this screen here, it will open up this one here, and then you tap Australia because we're in Australia. Aha, that says Austria. There you go. I've just noticed that. It'll be this one here, Australia. And once you tap that, it will ask you network service provider, which in this case, oh, I'll just go back. In this case, I've selected the Osgrid. You will get a list of the DNSPs, and all the settings are preloaded into that, so you don't have to actually change any of the settings unless your DNSP actually requests a different setting. So we've got all these settings here, and in this case, I selected the Osgrid network. And then up in the top right hand side, it says turn on device, and you tap that, and you will get this, first of all, this screen here. It will go into standby, then it will go starting up, the usual startup phase, then it will be on run. And once you've done that, the inverter is set for the grid connection. Now you'll also have to enable, on the inverter, if you're using an IM4 dongle, the inverter that has the meter connected to it, and we will produce an actual document on this so that you've got it. You do have to enable the RS485 port for the meter. Now, I'm not going to kind of go through that, but you go into the settings from the Bluetooth once again. You just go into your settings and into the parameters, and you'll just enable this. It's called transparent transmission via standby RS485. And you just do that and it will be enabled. As I say, I'm not going to go into detail on this right now. We will have it, or we do have it in a document, so we can send that out to you. But just remember, you do have to enable the meter port only if you're using the IM4 dongle. Now, commissioning, whether you're doing it the IM4 or the logger, you do it via a tablet or a PC or a smartphone. Now, I recommend a PC. It's just easier. The screen's bigger. I find it easier to use the keys, the mouse pad, and all the rest of it. But I know that people have used smartphones for it, or iPads or whatever. You're just going to connect to this via the Wi-Fi. Okay, so both the IM4 and the Logger 1000, I've got the same commissioning sequence. I've got the same interface on them. So, but I will go through both of them separately because there is something different you do on each of them. Okay, the first thing you're going to do, so you want to connect to either the dongle or the Logger 1000. Now you do this through the Wi-Fi. So you go into whatever your device you're using and you go into your Wi-Fi settings and you scan for Wi-Fi devices and you will find the SG network, which is a Sungrow, and the serial number of the device. And you just connect to that through your Wi-Fi. So once you've done that, you're linked to the logger or the IM4 dongle through your Wi-Fi. You then open up a browser and you type in the address 11.11.11.1 into your address bar, and you will be into the interface. So this one here is an IM4 here, you can see it here. So you need to log in. So you just tap that little login and you enter down here, open up this one here, and the password is PW lowercase 1111. And once you do that and you log in, the first time you log in, you'll get this little box coming up. You can really ignore it. So you just scroll down, you tap that little do not prompt anymore, and then confirm, and it'll get rid of that dialog box for you. So the first thing you want to do in the logger, the dongle doesn't have this, but the logger does. You need to set the time. So, hang on, where are we? Go here, so you select, you go into the system time, and you set the time. Just make sure you check the box. Clock source should be NTP, select your time zone. Just make sure this is on ntp.api.bz. And the time interval, this is the data upload interval to the iSolar cloud. The default is 5 minutes. So you just check these like that and save. Now you're going to have to scan for your devices. So you go into device list, and you hit the auto search. Now this will scan for the inverters, and you'll get this little box coming up showing that it's scanning for the inverters. Just give it a minute, 2 minutes, let it complete its scan, and once it's done that, just check that it's found all of the inverters. If there are inverters missing, check your RS485 cabling. And you'll know, because once you've said yes, you've got the inverters, you'll get this little link here. Now, to add the meter, you can't scan for this automatically, you just add it manually. So you click the button that says add device, and this little box will pop up. So you just select meter, COM2, that's equivalent of A2B2. So you make sure you select that port. You select the device model. The default address for our meters is 254, and the meter's already got that programmed. And then you just scroll down and save, and you will then have, there you go, there's the meter, and this little green link shows that it's communicating. This is the one from our training center, so I have one inverter and one meter, and they're both communicating there. Okay, so once you've done that, you've got all your devices scanned. All you need to do, if you need to set the export control, it's just a couple of little settings here, nice and easy. So you go into device monitoring here on the left hand side, and you select, your meter will come up on the list of devices connected, so you just select the meter, and you select initial parameter, and down here is your CT transformer ratio. So obviously if it's a 100 amp supply, you're going to use 100 amp CTs, which is 100 divided by 5 is 20, and you just put your ratio into there and then hit the save button, and that's done. Next thing you're going to do is set the export limit, and once again this is very easy. You just select active power control and then active power like that. Oh, hang on, I'll go back one. And once again we'll produce the document. You just can copy this, just select local power control, make sure this is at 0% here, closed loop control, select the meter, it's direct connection, and just make sure this is enabled here, start after communication recovery, and the feed in stop, disable that, because you need to disable that, because if what will happen if you leave that enabled is when you start feeding into the grid, the inverter will shut down and it'll stay switched off. So you just need to make sure you disable that. And you select kilowatt instruction type and add your maximum export in here. In this case it's 15. Yeah, like that. Scroll down to the bottom and there's a save button there, and you save that. Done. Okay, the next thing you want to do is get this up onto iSolar Cloud. Now I'm going to rearrange this presentation at some point, because I actually find that it's better to get the system up on iSolar Cloud first, because once it's up on iSolar Cloud we can actually log into it and help you with the settings if you're having any problems. So this might be actually the best thing to do first. So the first thing you do is you've got to create a plant. Now you need to use your iSolar Cloud app to do this, and you need to have your installer account. So you just basically select, you open up, we got a different video on this. I don't have time to actually go through this one in detail at the moment, because it would take me up over an hour and a half. But if you need to know how to add plants, we've got the videos on our webpage. So when you add the plant, you select as commercial and PV, and then you select either the logger or the IM4 depending on what you're using, and it will give you this little box here, and you scan the QR code on the logger or the IM4 and just follow the prompts after that, and that will create the plant on the iSolar Cloud. Now to get it up on the iSolar Cloud, you can use, with the Logger 1000, you can use Ethernet or the Wi-Fi. The dongle is only Wi-Fi. So first thing you're going to have to do is make sure that it is enabled. So in this case you go into System and Remote Maintenance, and you just enable the remote maintenance, and important, select the international server here. If you don't select that properly, you won't be able to log into it, and hit the save button. Excuse me. Next thing you want to do is the transfer configuration. Now, if you go into system transfer configuration here, and there's just a little adjustment you do need to make here, because this is a global supply and you need to set it for our region. Hit this little gear wheel here, which is the settings, and you have to make sure that is set to api.isolarcloud.com.hk. In the default, it doesn't have the .hk, and if you don't set that, once again, it will go up to another server and you won't be able to view it here. So just make sure that that is set to HK and save. Next thing you're going to do, and this is the Logger 1000 I'm doing, I'll do the IM4 in a moment. You have to connect either via the Wi-Fi or the Ethernet. So you select the port parameter, in this case Ethernet. This is if you're doing the Ethernet here. Now you have to speak to your customer. They might want to use a specific IP address, or they might not. The DHCP is a standard default of most devices when you're connecting to the modem. You just plug and play. But if they have a specific IP address, then you just close the DHCP off and you enter the IP address information in here, as per what the IT person tells you to do. And then at the end, this little floppy disk icon here is the save icon. If you're using Wi-Fi, select the Wi-Fi option, and it will give you a list of Wi-Fi networks that it scans. Same as you do any Wi-Fi setting, it will give you a list of the options. So you just basically select the correct Wi-Fi network, and the customer will give you a password, and you can connect to the Wi-Fi, no problem. Now, down at the bottom, when you do this, you'll know if you've done it correctly. It's down at the bottom of these little icons here. If you're using the Wi-Fi and you successfully connect to the Wi-Fi, this little Wi-Fi icon will light up. If you're using Ethernet, this one will light up here. And this little cloud means you've actually successfully connected to the iSolar cloud. And you can double check it, make sure it's okay. If you go back into system remote maintenance, it will give you this information here that you've actually connected it properly. Make sure that's got the HK on it. And you can see here, this is an Ethernet connection here. Like that. Now, if you're doing it via the iSolar cloud, it's a bit quicker. It's nice and easy. Once again, you enable the remote maintenance, the same as you did with the logger. And transfer configuration, once again, make sure it's set to api.isolarcloud.com.hk, otherwise you'll communicate with the wrong server. And then select port parameters and Wi-Fi. And, oh dear, I'm missing a, oh, here we go. Yeah. There we are, sorry. Select the Wi-Fi, and once again you'll see a list of the Wi-Fi networks. Make sure this is on, and you connect to whatever the Wi-Fi network is. There you go, and that's you connected to the iSolar cloud. Now, if you want to log in remotely, let me see, how are we doing for time here? Okay, we're doing okay. I'm sorry about rushing through this, I just want to make sure I get it all in. If you do want to log in to your logger or your IM4 dongle remotely, go to the iSolar cloud. Now, you should have your installer account, log in online via your PC. This is a PC thing here, and it will give you all your plants here. And if you select this little remote maintenance little button here, you will get this screen here, and you just put your plant name in there to search it, and it will give you the plant name again, and you just select it there, and it will give you this information here. So you just tap that little thing there, and that will copy the IP address of the logger or the dongle, and you just edit into put it into a browser in the address bar and hit enter, and that will connect you to the logger or the dongle. And this is the interface screen here you get here. Once again, log in, PW1111, like that, and then you're logged in. And you can do all the settings again or change them, or we can log in from here. You can do the firmware updates, system maintenance will take you to the firmware updates. You can do all of that from here. So that is basically how you commission. Once you've done one of them, it'll take you, once you know how to do it, you can probably do it in less than half an hour. It's really easy. I've done a couple. I've even done them via TeamViewer from the office here, so they're nice and easy to do. So thank you very much for attending my webinar here, my presentation. I'm going to stop share. And how did we go?
I think you did really well there, mate. Sounds like you've done this thing before.
Yeah, well, you always have to practice first.
You do. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Graham. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we might move into some Q&A after that. So, once again, thank you everybody for logging into the inaugural Prosun Academy Sungrow webinar. It's been a very beneficial time spent, I believe. Now, when you guys registered to become part of this, you would have been asked to submit your CSC credentials. If you did not, could you please provide them to us so we can give them over to Sungrow to get you those sweet CPD points that you would have wanted to get. Also, all of you attendees, you lovely attendees, have all scored yourself a $100 gift voucher with Prosun to spend any way you see fit, so long as it's on Prosun product. Those vouchers will come to you via email in the coming days, okay? So CEC accreditation, please forward that to us. I've given my email address in the chat section. You just send it to there and I'll ensure that, that they're passed along and you get your CPD points.
Yeah.
Now,
excuse me interrupting here. You will have to have been present for, you know, at least 75% of the presentation to get the points. Obviously,
we'll review the recordings to make sure that you're there. Yeah, so we'll check.
That's okay. As long as people have attended, that's fine.
That's right. Now, as I said earlier, questions and answers for the chat. Nobody's put anything into the chat screen yet. So if you'd like to ask a question, there's a raise hand function on your screen. If you want to raise your hand, I'll unmute your mic and you can ask your question directly. Nobody's hands are raising. Okay, I might ask a question of my own, just to kick things off. I'm not sure, Graham, if you're the one to answer this. Maybe Scott or Wayhan may be better placed. The South Australians' remote access inverter policy that they're bringing through. Now, I have a fairly reasonable understanding of the domestic or single phase process. You know, the meter will be installed by the utilities, low voltage ride through compatible inverters, which Sungrow definitely is. There was a benefit in the C&I space. They have a slightly different process, which I believe bypasses some of the mucking around. So we'll either ask Graham's cat or Wayhan or Scott what they might think or can tell us.
Yeah, for the inverter, actually, for South Australia government, they required 5 new changes, but only three changes are relevant to inverter manufacturers. Sorry, the first one is low voltage rise through test. And all Sungrow on-selling products already passed this test, and we already listed on the approved list from South Australia government. The second thing is remote disconnection. For inverter manufacturer, the only requirement is all inverters must have DRM control port, physical port. But you know, this is a mandatory requirement from AS4777, and all Sungrow inverters can comply with AS4777, so we can comply with this requirement as well. But another one is regarding this remote disconnection. Installers and end users must sign an agent. So far, I know Solar Analytics is one of partners. And the Sungrow inverters already can be compatible with Solar Analytics via API. So what is API? That means Solar Analytics only can use AT technology. No need for any physical controller on the site. They just need software to control Sungrow as Solar Cloud portal so that they can control Sungrow inverters to disconnect from the grid. That can minimize the installation cost. No need any physical controllers, any physical communication cables. Okay, just the software. Yeah.
Good answer. Okay.
And the third one is dynamic export control. But at the moment, this is not clear. The government only required inverters must have internet capability and onboard communication port. But obviously, all Sungrow inverters have Ethernet capability, connection capability, and we have onboard communication ports. So, to sum up, we can comply with all relevant requirements in South Australia. Yes.
Excellent. The reason why I asked, because this is particularly, I don't think there's very many South Australian participants here today, if any, that I'm aware of, but there's already talk and some documents around that Ergon are looking at trialling a similar sort of process. It will come to other states in some form or another, so it was just a chance to ask that question. Now, we had a question here from Hugh Cooper. He asks in the chat, do you expect to see a single-phase 10 kilowatt products anytime soon in this market? They love the 8. Why don't you take it to a 10? Come on. There is a market for the 10 kilowatt single-phase.
Yeah, it's not in the process at the moment.
Oh, why not?
We've got 10 kilowatt three-phase hybrid. Hooray!
Yeah.
Oh, you
yeah.
okay.
At the moment, for Sungrow, we only have 8 kilowatt single-phase solar inverter. But next year, at the beginning of next year, we will come out our single-phase high-voltage hybrid inverters. So I believe at that, we could come out of 10 kilowatt single-phase.
I think
hybrid.
That would make sense. If you made it a hybrid as well, that would be quite valuable.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not solar inverter as well. It's hybrid single phase. Yeah.
No, that would make some of the people happy some of the time. Fantastic.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Did anybody else have any questions? We are recording this, so we can forward recordings to people who want to review it at their leisure at a later date. Just check.
And if there's any questions, specific questions, just flick us an email, and we can answer like a more detailed question. Because I know that different circumstances have got different questions. So yeah,
that's okay. Now, Sungrow has an exceptionally good track record at back end and after warranty support and technical assistance. That's one of the main reasons we've partnered with them. A lot of companies talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. We have direct contact with these 3 gentlemen and even more people at Sungrow through our regular channels. So feel free to push those questions through us if you wish, or you can always access Sungrow directly through their channels from their website. But we're more than happy to shepherd those questions and get you those answers. With that all being said, again, if you haven't already given your CPD point, your CEC accreditation number on registration, please send it through. You can send it to my email address, which I've put in the chat there, sean@prosunsolar.com.au, and I'll see that they get processed and you get your sweet points. And again, those gift vouchers, they'll be out to you shortly. So unless anybody has any late mail or any last minute questions, I think I will conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much for attending, Scott, Wayhan and Graham. It's always good to have you.
yeah, pleasure.
And
Thank you.
and thank you so much to
Thank
all
you.
those to attend.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, thanks everyone.
I'm hitting the red button now, so good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.